Hey there, what is up guys, my name is Amir and welcome to the Data Factory series. In the last video, I explained what a tumbling window trigger is, what are the properties, and also when you should be using it. I did also go through an example to understand the tumbling window trigger. In this video, I'll be creating a tumbling window trigger on Azure Data Factory. I'll also be using the triggers system variables and trying to execute the pipeline based on these variables. And we will also discuss the pipeline dependency that Data Factory has to offer. So without spending any more time, let's get started. So here I am in my Data Factory workspace. Let's just start with creating a new pipeline. And add an activity, which is the set variable activity. Once we have that in here, let's create two parameters. Let's call them start time and end time, because this is what will be passing through the trigger. And then let's also create a variable and call it output so that we can refer it in the set variable activity. Let's refer this output over here, and in the value section, let's click on add dynamic content and start with using concat, and let's add some string over here which says start time is this, and then we will also have an end time over here as this. So what I'll be doing is I will just select the start time variable from here and then click over here and select the end time variable over here. Oh, there's a comma missing. All right, now this looks good. Yeah, so once we have this ready, let's go back and create a new trigger. So for creating a trigger, I think this is already something that you might be knowing so far. So if you go over here, click on new, and then let's just call it as set start time and time trigger. I'll leave the description for now, it's not really that important. I will change the type to tumbling window, and let's just execute it for 5 times from 7 p.m. to 7 p.m. and then we'll set the recurrence to 10 minutes because we want to execute it from 7 p.m. all the way till 7:50. All right, so if you look at this now, based on the start time and the end time, you will be executing the pipeline for every 10 minutes. And since this time is in the past, this is the backfill scenario which I was speaking in the earlier video, where we'll be running the pipeline for the past executions or to do a history load. Now in this case, we're not really doing a history load, but rather trying to see what the variables are generated when this trigger is created. And let's go into the advanced section now. So in the advanced section, the first thing that you'll see is to add dependency. And let's speak about this in more details because this is something which is important. Now, not every project or not every use case requires this, but in very few cases, you might definitely need this, and it's good to go through this. So there's a very good documentation from Microsoft which explains this really well. And let's just go over there. There are 3 things that you can see over here right now. The first one is the dependency offset, the second one is the dependency size, and the third one is the self-dependency. So when we say dependency offset, what we're trying to say is that if 2 triggers are dependent on each other, in this example, we have 2 intervals, 9 to 10 and 10 to 11. So what this is illustrating is that the pipeline or the trigger A is dependent on the trigger B's execution or the interval between 10 to 11. So only if trigger B is executed between this time, then your trigger A will be executing that pipeline. Similarly, if you set an offset, which is over here is set to -1 hour, we are doing what is we are shifting the focus of the interval from 10 to 11 to 9 to 10. And you can see over here that now the window of 10 to 11 is dependent on triggers B window of 9 to 10. You can also set a dependency size. So you can see that the offset is now -1 hour, which is the interval size also. In this case, you can see that you can change the dependency size and you can set the dependency to a longer time So for example, if you're looking at this example where you have trigger A and trigger B, where trigger A is dependent on trigger B's execution for these two windows, just because we set the size to 2 hours and the offset is -1 hour again. The next is self-dependency. Now self-dependency is something which is, I would say, important to understand, because in few scenarios we have pipelines who should be only be triggered if the previous one has succeeded, and that's exactly where the self-dependency trigger helps you. So what you have to do is you have to create a trigger and then create a dependency on itself, making the offset change to -1 hour. You have to make sure that you always do this, because this is how you are supposed to create a self-dependency trigger. You can also add the size of the offset. So similarly, you can see the dependency size can be increased just like what we are doing over here. You can also achieve it in this section over here. Now let's get back to the data factory pipeline. I'll not be adding this at the moment because this is not really relevant for this demo. And let's look into the other properties that we missed in the earlier video. Now we talk about the next thing is delay. So delay is something that you can set in order to introduce a delay while executing the data factory pipeline. So if I set it to 1, or maybe if I set it to execute after, like, let's say 30 seconds, then the pipeline, even if the execution time is, let's say 7, it will start executing at 7 hours, 0 minutes and 30 seconds. And then you have concurrency. I think we already spoke about this in a lot more detail in the earlier video, but again, let's just go through this. So with the help of this max concurrency, you can execute up to 50 pipelines simultaneously. Retry policy is basically how many times you want to retry if the data factory pipeline fails. And the retry policy, intervals in second, means that if a pipeline fails and you're trying to retry, how much seconds should it wait before retrying that pipeline? So I hope this is clear. If you still have questions, make sure you just add these questions in the comment box and I'll definitely be trying to answer them. So let's just create this trigger as of now. So everything is set, everything looks fine. So it should execute for like at least 5 times based on the time that we have set. So let's click on OK. This is a section that is important to configure. So what we'll be doing over here is we'll be adding the system variables, which is trigger.outputs.window start time. I'll copy this from here and I will paste this here and change start time to end time. So what this will do is this will take these variables whenever you're executing or whenever the pipeline has been executed. These values basically will be taken up from the tumbling window trigger. Let's click on OK and let's publish this. I hope this works and this not fails. There you go, it has been published successfully. So let's just go back to monitor and you can see that we have 4 pipelines running as of now. In total there should be 5 and they are succeeded. And if you can see over here, the duration is just 1 second because we are just using the set variable. Let's look at the parameters. All you have to do is just scroll to the right to check them, and you can see you have a start time and an end time. But to look at this in a better way, let's just open the latest run and click on the output of the set variable activity, and you can see that the start time is set to 1930, which is ending at 1940. So this is one of the interval that trigger created, and this is how the tumbling window trigger works. Again, if you still have questions, if you have more doubts, make sure that you reach out to me on comment section or on Twitter. And thank you for watching the video. Subscribe for more. I'll see you guys in the next one.